I'm Dylan. Welcome to the Teradici Arch published desktop installation video. This video will guide you on how to install PC over IP services in a Microsoft Remote Desktop Services environment. We will also cover how to configure the solution and do an end-to-end connection with PC over IP Zero clients or a Mac client. Here's a brief look at the steps you will need to take to ensure a successful installation. First, ensure the proper configuration of Windows Server 2008 R2 64-bit and VMware View. Install the PC over IP server components. Import the PCM virtual appliance. And finally, you will configure the endpoints. So let's get started. To begin, you'll need to download the Teradici Arch published desktop software package from the support site, which is located at techsupport.teradici.com. If you haven't got an account, you can create a new account, and it's free. For this video, we've had an account already created. First, log in and click the Downloads tab. Select Teradici Arch Downloads. Here, you'll be downloading the PC over IP Connection Manager, which is an OBF file, the PC over IP agent, and related documentation. Now, after installing the Windows 2008 server, either on a virtual or physical server, we need to install the VMware View agent. In this case, because we are running in a virtual server, we can go through our vSphere client. Log in as the administrator and install the VMware View agent 5.1 or newer. For the sake of this video, we've already mapped the View agent onto the server 2008. To install it, double-click on the VMware View agent. Go through the licensing. If the template did not have Remote Desktop enabled, then enable the Remote Desktop capability on this computer when prompted. Enter the View Connection server address. In our environment, the credentials are the same for the server 2008 and the View Connection server, so you can just connect through as the current user. Otherwise, you would supply your administrator credentials for the VCS. Click Install, and then click Finish. When it asks to restart, choose to restart later. In this case, we don't want to reboot, we must perform a complete shutdown. Once you've installed the VMware View agent on the Windows Server 2008, the next step is to configure RDS for the server. Open a console. Click Administrative Tools. Click Server Manager. Click Add a Role. And then click Next. Select Remote Desktop Services role, and then click Next. Select Remote Desktop Services host, and click Next. Click Do Not Require Network Level Authentication, and click Next. You can configure the licensing later. Once you've determined your licensing method, you've got 180 days before the temporary license expires. Click Next, and then add the domain group that will have access to the remote desktops. If you haven't created a group yet, you can add it later. For the client experience, click All Options. Click Next and install. You'll have to restart the server, log back in, and click Close. And that completes the installation of the RDS role. Our next step in installing the Teradici Arch solution is in relation to the Windows 7 experience. Click on the Start menu, run gpedit.msc. This will launch the local group policy editor. Click Computer Configuration. Click Administrative Templates, Windows Components, and scroll down to the Windows Remote Desktop Services. Select Remote Desktop Session Host and Remote Desktop Session Environment. This is where you need to change the color depth. Click Enable and select 32-bit. Then select Allow Desktop Composition. Then log back into the domain. Now, if you want to enable Windows 7 Aero, right-click on the desktop, hit Personalize, and select the Windows Aero theme. If this setting is grayed out, go to the Control Panel. System, Advanced Settings, Advanced tab. In the Performance section, click Settings. Make sure Let Windows choose what is best for my computer is enabled. So now the Windows Aero 3 theme is enabled. Now, it's time to add the Windows Server 2008 to the VMware View environment. You will need to connect to your View Connection server and log in. Go to Pools, Add a Pool, select Terminal Services Pool. Click Next, and enter in the ID field a unique name for the pool. Click Next. In the Pool Settings section, leave the defaults. Not all of these defaults will be applied even though they are enabled. Click Next. Select the RDS server. Click Next. Select Entitle Users after this wizard finishes. If desired, you can also entitle users at a later time. Click Finish. Check the status of the pool to make sure the agent is available. Okay, moving on. Now it's time to install the PC over IP server components. The PC over IP server installation program, PC over IP agent, release, installer, and version number is provided as part of the Teradici Arch software package. Begin by logging into the Windows 2008 server as an administrator. Click on Start. Go to the Control panel, select Programs, and click Install Application on Remote Desktop. Then click Next. Browse to the location where you copied the installer and select it. Click Open, and then click Next to launch the install wizard. Accept the license agreement. Follow the prompts as desired, and click Finish. At the final prompt, select the option to reboot later and click Finish. Power the Windows 2008 server off, and then back on. Earlier, we downloaded the PC over IP Connection Manager from the support site and moved it to the system we are using the vSphere client on. This is a virtual appliance that is provided in an OVA file format. So from the vSphere client, we're going to deploy the OVF template. It's going to require a minimum of 4 GB of memory and 40 to 60 GB of hard drive space, thin provisioned at 1 GB. It also requires a minimum of 2 vCPUs and also the ability to SSH in. So to import the PC over IP Connection Manager, deploy the OVF template and go to where you've downloaded it. Click Next. Click Next again and click Accept to accept the licensing agreement, and enter a name for the virtual appliance. We're going to leave this as the default, so click Next. Select the hosting cluster or resource pool on which you want to deploy the PC over IP Connection Manager. Click Next and select the data store you wish to use. Select Thin Provision and click Next. You'll be prompted to enter the IP address information. Ignore this step, as you'll be prompted again for these settings when the PC over IP Connection Manager reboots. Just click Next and select Power On after deployment. Click Finish and click Close. Okay, so we're almost done the install. From the vSphere client, connect to the console, and once prompted, enter a password and retype it. The characters won't be seen as you're typing. When prompted to update the IP configuration, enter Y for yes, and enter the static IP address, and enter the gateway IP address, and the subnet mask for the PC over IP Connection Manager. Enter a hostname or IP address of the View Connection server. You'll then be prompted whether to configure the PC over IP security gateway or not. If you should decide to do so, you will need to enter the external public WAN-facing IP address that will be used by clients to connect externally. Please note, this is a different address than the internal one. If you enable the firewall but want to manage the PC over IP Connection Manager remotely, then type Y when prompted to enable SSH on TCP port 22. When prompted to generate a CSR, select N to use the self-generated certificate for the PC over IP Connection Manager. Or type Y if you want to generate an SSL certificate signing request for the Tomcat server. If you select Yes, then enter your first and last name. When prompted, enter the fully qualified domain name of the PC over IP Connection Manager appliance. Enter the remaining information, and at the final prompt, type Yes, and then your csr.txt file will be saved in the root directory to be used at a later time. Now, the PC over IP Connection Manager setup is complete. On a PC over IP 0 client, go to Options, select User Settings, and under VMware View tab, select the certificate check mode to Warn or Do Not Verify. Then click OK. From the VMware View connection dialog on the 0 client, enter the hostname or IP address of the Teradici PC over IP Connection Manager and click Connect. Similarly, for a VMware View client, such as a notebook or tablet, enter the hostname or IP address of the Teradici PC over IP Connection Manager at the Connect dialog and click Connect. This concludes our demonstration of the Teradici Arch solution installation. As always, if you have any questions or would like more information on a Teradici product, please check us out at techsupport.teradici.com. Thanks for watching.